did that. I did that. I did the job that made me a lot of money, and life just never felt completely fulfilled. And now I'm living the dream, and I don't sleep much, but the sleep I do get is good sleep. I'm a happy person, and that's all you can ask for, right?
Hey, this is Nick Armstrong, and you are listening to the FOCO Comic-Con podcast. Every episode, we get the chance to talk with some cool creators in our community, artists, authors, and today, we have an amazing author with us, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. Rachel, join us, and tell us about your work.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Rener. I'm super happy to be here. I write urban fantasy books that blur the line between science and magic. We love magic over in this part of the woods. I live in the Golden, West Arvada area. Super excited to be driving up to FOCO. And, when is that, Nick? Remind me.
Well, first of all, nobody is excited to drive on I-25.
Hey, you caught me.
It's just a lie. So we're starting off on a bad note already, but what I'll tell you is we are August 26th and 27th, and we're psyched to have you. Your lineup is spectacular. Tell us about your books.
Well, the book that has been really popular lately, look, I actually grabbed my prop today. It's inked. It's part of the Gilded Blood series. It's about Talia, a tattoo artist who's afraid of needles, finds out that her boss is hiding some magic ink and an interdimensional filing cabinet in the back of their tattoo shop. She steps into it and life gets turned upside down and inside out. It's been a lot of fun. I was able to put some of my ADHD and Jewish heritage in there in the form of a Jewish mother who calls it literally the worst possible time, not unlike my own mother, who has already sent me 2 text messages while we have been on this call for 3 minutes.
Listen, when they call in, just put them on and they'll join us as a guest on the show. Nothing is better than having an artist's parents on the call and recorded into the podcast. So
I need you to not encourage her, Nick. She has already called. I do a D&D podcast every week. She knows absolutely under no circumstance should she call on Sundays between 6 and 9 p.m. Every Sunday, I tell you what, she calls. And one time we actually did just put her on speakerphone and live recorded it. That was fun. Especially because it was about the results of my colonoscopy. So no, I'm just kidding.
Hearing strange voices from the cave. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So how did you get started in writing?
I was working for a corporate job. This was 5 years ago that paid a ton of money. And I worked Christmas, I worked Hanukkah, I worked Thanksgiving, 2 a.m. I worked all the time. It wasn't a lot of fun. I had ulcers, which my Jewish mother hawked me about all the time. I'll tell you what. And one day I quit, and I was immediately going to go back out there and look for another job. And my husband, God bless him, physically sat me down in front of a computer and he said, "Look, Rachel, I really need you to write." And I said, I don't know what to write about, right? Because that was when J.K. Rowling and Brandon Sanderson, they plot out every single point of their story before they even begin, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, that's how you write a book. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And he said, "I don't care. Shut up and write." And then 7 weeks later, my very first book was born. And I haven't stopped writing since. It's been 13 publications in the last less than 5 years. So, yeah.
Okay. So we gleaned 2 very important bits of information there.
Mm-hmm.
First, you're a pantser. You write by the seat of your pants and you don't plot things out. Okay.
No.
The second is, you wrote your first book in 7 months?
No, 7 weeks.
7 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. How? Did you have what? Okay. Is the autobiographical? Did you already pull this story? There's a magical ink cabinet somewhere in your life that has occurred. How did you do this in 7 weeks?
I think neuroticism can take you really far in life. But no, so This is not the ink book. This is a different book. It's like if Captain Marvel and Avatar: The Last Airbender had a baby, but with a magical cult. And I sat down and I was just picturing this woman with heterochromatic eyes, like one blue eye, one sort of purple eye, living alone in a cabin, completely cut off from everybody. And then I just stumbled around in a dark forest with a dim flashlight for a while, only seeing directly what was in front of me. But then it's sort of addicting. You're like, well, wait, what happens after this tree? And what happens after this bush? And what's that squirrel over there? Like ADHD is such a blessing and a curse. And in this case, I just put my pure, undivided hyperfocus. I didn't eat. I held my pee for way too long. It was not healthy. My husband would come home from the office and I would be like gray faced. And he would be like, did you eat today? And I was like, who's time for eating, Erin? Who has time? And anyway, that's how I wrote my first book in 7 weeks, Nick. Thank you so much for asking.
You asked for this. You told me to do it. So
this
that's
is
really
your fault.
Yeah, this novel is your fault. I really had you written before? I know you said you came from a really boring corporate job before.
Yeah.
All-encompassing, soul-sucking endeavor. Had you been creative in other ways, or had you written before? Was there a separate origin story where it was like a preview of what was to come?
Yeah, let's talk about that. When I was in third, fourth grade combo class, I was the youngest one in the class. We were supposed to write like a 2-page story about anglerfish, and mine turned into like, an 18-page chronicles of like an anglerfish kraken, ship going down. And then, when I was in 9th grade and I was in my honors biology class, we were supposed to write about Ebola. And so, of course, instead of being a scientific paper, because those are so dry, right, I started off with a very dramatic retelling about a woman who went into the jungles of like Zambia and, like pricked her finger on a tree that had monkey droppings on. And then it was like her slow descent into like bleeding out of every pore in her body. And the teacher called my mother very concerned. And then I went to therapy for a while, so that backtracked the writing for a little bit. And then I lived in Japan and I had a blog about singing toilets and fish heads that I was forced to eat, and that took off. So yeah, accidentally, there was a lot of accidental creative writing that I stumbled into. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you were a kid, you wrote Outbreak. This is stunning. What was did you have like cultural influences that were coming into purview at this time? Or was it, have you been geeky? Did you have fandoms that you associate with? Because it seems like your work is kind of a mix between science, superhero, lore, mythology. Like what's inspiring you?
I'm a pretty diehard fantasy fan. The only blow up fights my husband and I have ever had were like Star Trek versus Star Wars. He was obviously wrong. I won't tell you what his side was, but you don't have to. I doubt it would be hard for you to guess. So a lot of fantasy books. I was raised on Goosebumps. Like I chewed through like 3 Goosebumps and Animorphs books a day. Sailor Moon, my first job ever was going to anime conventions, did a bunch of like, Sailor Moon, Ranma 1/2, Tenchi Muyo, those types of drawings. So I've always loved like the fantasy, OP superheroes, but particularly like overpowered women who can just come and like destroy a planet. That's love that trope. And so it is primarily fantasy. This new series went into like epic portal fantasy, which was so much fun. I made a map. I came up with a language. Someone clearly needs to intervene in my life. And then I wrote a standalone book about a girl whose epileptic seizures cause time to fracture around her. So, I don't even remember the original question that you asked me, but the answer, Nick, is everything and also the number 42.
Sweet.
Next question.
It was primarily about fandom, so you've answered all of that plus some. Are your universes intertwined at all? Like, are there elements of one book than another and characters that sort of like, and I know that most of what you write is sort of standalone, but do they play with each other well, or is there some sort of larger world building that's going on?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. The answer is only intelligent authors write series in the same universe because they have foresight and a plan. Nick, I do not have either of those things. So, no, I have one 4-book fantasy series that starts here in Colorado and then goes all over the place. I have another fantasy series, totally different universe, goes to the Fey realm. And then I have a standalone fantasy about the epileptic seizures. Oh, and then there's one about a dragon who lives in a retirement home, and then a 9-year-old girl knocks on his front boulder, and after deciding not to eat her, they go on a quest for applesauce. So no, there's absolutely no overlap, and in hindsight, I probably should have had some, some overlap. I would have sold more books.
Well, where's the fun in that?
No fun, and I get bored.
The profit thing already.
Exactly.
Tell us about your con experience. Like, where do you go? What are some of your favorite cons to visit? And what's the audience reception?
I love cons. I go to Fan Expo all the time. I was actually a featured author this year. I was privileged enough. They made a terrible mistake of having me do several panels. I'm sure you can already imagine what those panels were like. How I can draw Holocaust history and also like make people laugh really hard, I'm not exactly sure, but I love cons, especially the panels. Let's see, I was up in London for the British Fantasy Society con. That was great. Tried not to drink too much. They're a little bit more careful with their words over there. And Fort Collins, of course, Fort Collins is my favorite convention by far. If I could choose only one convention to go to, it would be the FOCO Comic Con.
You say that on every podcast.
Actually, I can tell you honestly, this is my one and only Comic Con related podcast. So no, Nick, I have only said it one time in my entire life, and it was here to you.
Well, I appreciate that. More lies.
No, it's just I'm narrow spicy. I can't lie. It gets me in trouble all the time.
Who's doing some amazing character work or world building that you wish you could, if you could partner up with any author anywhere, or any creative, like whether could be a showrunner, could be, who would it be?
Who's making the most money right now?
Terry Matalas. It's Terry Matalas at Paramount. He's doing all the Star Trek. It's all the Trek. Or J.J. Abrams, maybe, I guess, with the Star Wars stuff.
You know what? There's a lot of color and light in this most recent series that I did, the Gilded Blood series. I feel like all of those lens flares would work really well for my vision as well. No, seriously, one of my all-time favorite authors, you've probably not heard of her because I think she's pure indie, and her name is Annette Marie, and she, like the aforementioned intelligent authors, all of her books take place in the same universe. So she writes urban fantasy, and then you'll meet like one side character over here, and you're like, that's a great side character, and Annette says, I know it's a great side character. I'm making a spin-off series about that side character, and she makes tons of money and she sells tons of books, and it would be so much fun to write with her. So Annette, if you're by chance watching this podcast about Fort Collins Comic Con, reach out to me. I'll have my parrot talk to your cat.
We'll get the agents talking together to try and get them at a booth this time around. What can we look forward to at your booth at Fort Collins?
A lot of color. Me putting my foot in my mouth, gold ink pens because, just because, and, really just answering any question you have for me, even if it's inappropriate and I shouldn't answer it, because again, that's how we roll. That's how we roll, Nick.
What would you tell a young author who maybe didn't want to write their first book in 7 weeks, but was working towards writing their first book at an appropriate level of time for them?
I've been doing a Barnes and Noble tour this summer. I've done it for the last couple of summers, and it's actually one of my all-time favorite things. I get a lot of writers, some very young, some who are retired, saying, I'm working on my first book, and I always tell them to email me directly. I love talking to them. There's no one most important piece of information, but when you're just getting started, definitely write what you love. If you get in the weeds of, oh man, I absolutely love vampires, especially ones that sparkle in the sun, but apparently that's not trendy anymore. So I'm going to research the things that are trendy, and apparently it's mops that shift into, leopards. Actually, leopard shifter romance is pretty popular right now. I don't know if you've seen it, but the shifters, they're getting really creative. I saw Tyrannosaurus Rex shifter romance novel. Anyway,
It's that
let's not go
Animorphs thing
down that
coming
rabbit
back. I'm
hole.
telling you, it's
Yeah, in terrifying ways that we never could have imagined. No, the my first piece of information will be, don't worry about the trends, write what you love. You're not going to make money as a writer anyway, so you may as well enjoy what you're doing. And then my second piece of advice is have a lot of people read your book who are not your mother. In my case, my mother is Jewish and from Brooklyn, and would tell me absolutely everything that's wrong with it, which was helpful. But most mothers, actually want you to feel good about yourself and will tell you all the things you want to hear. So just make sure that people other than your husband and your mom and your best friend are reading it. And then, listen to them, right? If they're saying that the leopard shifter felt a little bit odd with the Tyrannosaurus Rex werewolf, you might want to tweak that part of your story a little bit, right? And Nick, I'm really sorry. I see the skeleton, the bones right behind you. It looks like a T-Rex. If you're currently working on like a T-Rex shifter romance, I support your endeavor and I support your dream. I do.
I can't say that I am personally working on that, but I'm sure that it exists somewhere, and we
It
don't
does.
fandom shame.
No, we
Just do
don't. We
whatever
don't.
whatever
We
floats anybody's boat.
absolutely. I was invited on a podcast not too long ago, and I was reading out loud from a book. I don't remember the title, but something about a demon living in the guy's girlfriend's nether.
Okay.
And so he would climb into his girlfriend's nether, which was apparently a portal to hell, and he would hang out with the demons there. So no, we don't shame people for what they write or read. We embrace all forms of demons and nether in this corner of the internet. Next question.
You just got to wonder, I guess, somebody's life experience to write that level of depth. It's
Depth.
really,
There was so much depth.
What was your origin story? It's a really I don't want to take that interview.
No.
I'm a
And yet, you kind of do. You kind of do.
Well,
Yeah.
the intern take that interview. That episode is a very special episode of the FOCO Comic-Con podcast, which appears on the After Dark stream.
We all got canceled. Yeah.
It's a little dicey for a podcast. I'm just saying we have to maintain our G rating. Oh
no, this is a G-rated podcast, and you're gonna have so much editing to do.
We're gonna have so many bleeps.
Sorry.
It's just
I'm so sorry.
It'll look like the Area 51 documents, just completely redacted. It'd be a good 2-second clip where we're just like having fun, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's all good. Clean means a variety of things. In the podcast world. So as long as we're not, going down the Carlin list, we're okay. So
cheers. Amen to that.
What are you streaming right now on? Do you have time to stream things on Netflix and Hulu or other places like that?
Yeah, you know how annoying it is when like you're really excited to show your friend or partner like a movie or something that you're super excited about, then you glance over and they're on their phone like playing Candy Crush. That's me. And so my husband streams the best shows. I just can't tell you what they are because I'm usually writing down notes for one of my books. That said, one series that actually took me out of my laptop, where I closed it, right, which is saying a lot, was The Great, which is based on Catherine the Great and Peter the Great. Have you seen that one?
I have not dived into that one just yet.
It is so good. Nicholas Hoult. I have never hated a character so much to like worshiping the ground that he walks on. He's absolutely brilliant. I really, really, really recommend it. I do. It's a great series. There's a lot of not G-rated stuff in it, though. And I don't know if you heard jokes about Catherine and horses and stuff, but they do address that in the series.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What would have to, if it's not streaming, then it's not really diving into the characters.
Agreed.
It's really
Agreed. What about you? What are you watching right now that would make me close my laptop?
Oh, I'm a hardcore Trekkie. Okay, so let's preface that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of that in this household too. A lot.
Yeah. So your husband was on Team Trek, right? That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, hardcore.
Okay.
Hardcore. Yeah.
So Strange New Worlds,
Yeah.
Anson Mount, Christopher Pike. It's just so hard to dislike. They just dropped the episode with the tie-in between the animated series and the live action series. So you've got Lower Decks characters.
I heard it was amazing. It
was stunning. Terry Matalas is doing some truly amazing things with Star Trek these days, and I just and the entire cast and crew are working on some brilliant things. Lower Decks and Picard, all of that has been in a wonderful place. And it's sort of this like golden era of Trek, right? Because you've got Discovery and all this. I could geek out on Star Trek for days.
I can tell. I love that. Well, I love for you too that there is just so much to geek out on. Because you're right. This is like everywhere you look, there's Star Trek, and it's fine. I'm a fan. I'm not a diehard fan, but Picard all the way. Picard all the way.
Well, you know who held it together through the entire. So you had that, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. You had Enterprise, and then you had it was a lull for 20 years. There was nothing. But the writers, the books, the authors who came out and started creating those storylines that we were all missing, the characters, bringing them back to life. So I have a special place in my heart for authors of any type, and I appreciate that you're out there, even writing, divergent worlds is awesome, because you're, and I imagine that you get this, right? So is the average age range of your reader, what does that look like for you? And do they ever readers come back to you and say, I read this, I would love to see more, I really identified with myself in this character?
Yeah. Well, real quick, to go back to what you said, I agree. Authors are literally the greatest people in the entire universe. So glad that we're in agreement there.
Don't tell the artists.
Artists are great
podcast where we interview artists. No, we love artists too.
We love artists too. We do. It's true. It's true. The age range of my books surprises me. I thought it was going to be like young adult women, like maybe 18 to 30. But I tell you what, I have some diehard like 65-year-old male fans, and I love them too. So I feel like my books are targeted at maybe people in their 20s. I like to write books about people who are old enough to drink and vote. I just think it's more fun to do that. But really, I guess people can just find something to enjoy at any age, and I love that. And I think the more three-dimensional your characters are, the more people can relate to them, again, at any age or walk of life. So it's the whole gamut. Yeah.
You pull character, from your friends and family, and they can like recognize themselves and like, oh, hey, the old dragon, the retired dragon, that's me. Like,
I normally my characters kind of take on lives of their own, where I can say, oh, this character has a lot of this person, or I can see that. I did once, I went through a really bad like friendship breakup, which just like, and one of the ways that I dealt with it was putting a lot of that friend in a certain character. And it was helpful because, why pay for therapy when you can just, write characters and then kill them off. Um,
And
I am
interdimensionally, you can kill them off as many times as you want to.
I'm mostly kidding. Mostly. But no, my characters love stealing a little bit from everybody. You know what? Maybe my next character will be named Nick. What would you like Nick to do in that book?
Well, I'm I'm hoping not die horribly in some sort
No,
of tragic interdimensional accident. So,
I'll send
uh,
him. I don't do sci-fi, but I will find a way to bring in a spaceship somehow, and I'll send him on a very enjoyable, comfortable trip. How's that sound?
awesome. And you let me know, and I will get a signed copy.
I know. I'm
Proudly display the chapter to my friends and family.
You don't want to go in the current book I'm writing right now. I went a little dark. I'm dealing with necromancy, or what appears to be necromancy, by actually bending time and then putting that ability in the hands of somebody who is really freaked out to lose people. So we're not going to put you in this book. We're not going to put you in this book. Otherwise, you may end up in an urn of ashes that gets carried around by one of the main characters.
Awesome.
But my mom's been begging me to do sci-fi for years, so that'll be the next series.
Well, I'm glad that I could inspire a small piece of your next work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, you hinted at your next work a little bit. How soon can we get a reader's sneak peek at your next novel, and where would we even go to do that?
Wow. So I guess this is the first time I'm officially saying this. I haven't even made an announcement on my website or anything else. I've just been teasing my readers because I'm a tease like that. But this is the standalone book I was telling you about, The Girl Who Talks to Ashes. It's the one where her epilepsy causes time to fracture around her. I am officially doing a companion book to that 3 years later, called The Boy Who Lurks in Shadows. So this is actually like breaking news. No one else knows that. Do me a favor and don't air this. I'll be in big trouble with my editor. But again, I told you I have no filter, so here we
could
are.
just bleep this part.
It's called
title.
And you can get all of my books anywhere books are sold, especially online for the paperbacks. You can get signed copies from my website, which is rachelrenner.com. We do not go overboard like Jeremy Renner and put 2 N's in our last name. We only put 1 because Jeremy is extra, and we don't need to be extra.
Well, I mean, when you're Hawkeye, it's just, it's a thing.
I get it.
I also see that you do audiobooks as well. So talk to me about some of that process. Do you, and I'm assuming that you don't voice them yourself. You have actors who do the thing. What's it like hearing your characters come to life through somebody narrating or voicing or acting those characters out?
It is a joy. I did think about narrating this series myself. I am a voice actor. I have the D&D podcast called Of Dice and Friends. However, there are sex scenes in this book, and I did not want to narrate that because it's bad enough that people are reading it, knowing that I wrote it. It's a whole other story if people are listening to me narrate it myself. So I am published by a wonderful company called Podium. They did the what's the Matt Damon movie, Mars something, or The Red Planet, I think, right? Yeah. They are the ones who turned that book into a big thing by making it into an audiobook. And they got Tara Novi, who is a actor, and she's absolutely brilliant, and she's so melodramatic, and I mean that in the absolute best way, because Talia is melodramatic, and so Tara, being a nice Jewish girl from New York, just absolutely nails it. And anytime Talia's mother calls, and Tara goes, "Talia, oh my God, I've been calling you for days and days and days," when it's been like 20 minutes, Tara she nails it. So she just finished the 4th and final book in the series. That is releasing in September. I am like already chomping at the bit to listen to it, because even though I've read my stories 87,000 times during the writing and editing process, somehow she brings them to life. She does such a great job. So it's been a blast.
do you as the author have a preference, right? So you've written the words.
Yeah.
You want people to like read it in its original like dead tree form, or is it okay if if you have a voice actor like listening to the audiobook? And here's the other aspect of this.
Yeah.
There are people like you and I who are, you know, ADHD. We
Yeah.
have our Audible app set to 2 times speed. And we know that
2.2.
So how do you feel? Is there any like internal like angst about how your readers or your listeners are imbibing your work?
Yeah. So I would normally say Tara does such a great job. Just go listen to her, because she does. And even if you're only half listening, you know, you'll get the important stuff. But there's one thing that you miss in the audiobook, which is every chapter heading has an illustration that I did. You'll notice that chapter 1 is called Butt Cobras. And so and there's a picture of a cobra with a rattle on it. And yes, I know cobras don't have rattles, but then like you'll miss out on the chapter heading pictures. That's Biscuit, by the way. He is everyone's favorite character. Someone in a review said that she would take a bullet for Biscuit the bird. So that is the one thing you miss out on. Is there is some pretty cool artwork in the books that you won't get to appreciate if you listen to Tara. But then again, you'll listen to Tara doing a Jewish mother, and you get to hear someone else read the sex scene. So pros and cons, you know?
So really, just buy one of every format. That's the trick. The trick is support the author, support the artist, buy one of every copy.
You need to have at least 4 books, right? An ebook to take with you everywhere you go, a paperback to take with you everywhere you go and beat up for when the ebook runs out of batteries, a beautiful hardcover copy that you keep on the bookshelf and don't let anyone touch lest they get fingerprints on it, and then another beautiful hardcover copy that you get to support the author's Kickstarter that you then get buried with when you die. So 4 books of
excellent.
Of each.
Yep. You can't go wrong. I have really enjoyed our time today.
Don't lie.
No, I'm telling you, this is a good one. Where beyond Fort Collins Comic-Con on August 26th and 27th, where can we find you? Where can we find your work? And where do we listen to your awesome podcast?
You can listen to me at home, or you can listen to me at home. You can find me at home, but that would be creepy. So please at least text first before you show up. You can find my books. The ebooks are all free on Amazon Kindle Unlimited, but the paperbacks are anywhere you buy books in general. Like I said, you can also get signed paperbacks from me. I do free next day shipping. The podcast you can find anywhere podcasts are listened to. I speak English, I swear. That's called Of Dice and Friends. I play Tana, the chaotic tiefling. I'm sure you're super surprised to hear that. And let's see, my next show after Fort Collins Comic-Con is going to be Dragon Con, actually, down in Atlanta, Georgia. That's going to be a lot of fun.
You did not take any breather between those 2 events.
No, it was, in hindsight, it was a really idiotic thing to do. That said, I'm really looking forward to it, and you'll sleep when you're dead. You know, am I right?
Yes. Con season is really like that.
Yes.
Do you, so I have an inkling. Do you cosplay? Do you dress up at your booth while you're showing off your books?
I think your inkling is that I do, and you would be correct if you weren't incorrect, which is that when I go to cons as and not a guest, what's the word? As just like it as an attendant, I do dress up for sure. Like I have like a Darth Vader like mini dress, which is so much fun to wear. It has a cape and pockets. Like I would wear this to the grocery store if I didn't get weird looks. However, when I am myself, I try not to confuse and or traumatize people more than I already am. And so I cosplay as Rachel Rener, aka me.
Yeah, every character, even your own personality, is a cosplay. So that's a good thing.
Right? What about you, Nick? Am I going to see you there? Are you going to be dressed up?
Well, yeah. Usually I'm dressed in the inflatable T-Rex suit, or as the T-Rex handler that's lost the T-Rex and is
Cool!
looking around. I do have a lower decks uniform too, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, it's a good time. Even the con organizer gets to dress up, which is always fun. So
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see you guys. It's going to be great. Please tell your dinosaur not to eat me for whatever reason. He always finds me at the conventions and he always tries to eat me. And I don't know why that is, but I don't want to get eaten.
no promises. Okay? Though it just, chomped on books. So you might have a couple extra copies to, gift.
Gonna have to.
Yeah, it's the scratch and dent sale,
That's a great idea. That's a great one. 50% off for getting, tooth marks on it from a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, dino slobber. Don't worry about it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. And is there any last bits of advice that you want to convey to our listener?
Yeah, do a job that pays well. Don't be a writer. I'm just kidding. It has actually been a total blast to be here. I am full of shit. I just passed the 100,000 books sold mark. So really, you can't trust anything I say. But follow your dreams, people. Even if it means writing a book about demons living in your girlfriend's nether yaya. Just do what makes you happy, because life is short.
The first half of your advice was, don't follow your dreams, kids. Just go do something horrible that makes lots of money. And then you're like, but wait.
But I did, but you know what? I did that. I did the job that made me a lot of money, and life just never felt completely fulfilled. And now I'm living the dream, and I don't sleep much, but the sleep I do get is good sleep. I'm a happy person, and that's all you can ask for, right?
Absolutely. Well, and we'll have to have you on again to talk about how you navigate that world of like writing and no sleep, but also making it successful. That's, I think, a tricky thing that a lot of indie artists, folks, even writers, have not really narrowed down yet.
For sure. I'd love to do that. That would be great.
Awesome. Well, look forward to that episode sometime after Dragon Con, after all the crazy nonsense that's coming up. And FOCO Comic Con, which is coming up August 26th and 27th. Can't wait to see you there. And Rachel, we are so psyched to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely my pleasure, Nick. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see you then.
Well, for more great interviews with creators and artists, authors, listen to the FOCO Comic Con podcast anywhere you can find podcasts, or come see us at the con, and we'll see you there. Thanks for listening to the Fort Collins Comic Con podcast. Be sure to visit us at fococomiccon.com for more chats with local creators and creatives.